Ready? All right. Call the meeting to order. We can rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need to adopt the agenda and consent agenda as our order of business. And of course, if anybody wants anything taken off for separate discussion and action, we can do so. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. And we will approve the consent agenda, which is three things. It's the minutes of our December 15th Board of Education meeting, the financial report for the period of July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. And then the bills is the third part of it from December 1st through December 31st. The amount of $2,608,046.26. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And all in favor say yes.
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 I want to just pause here since we're talking about the financial report. Board members to consider what in our financial reports draws your attention. And the second part, what is necessary that you see in our financial reports for our responsibility to oversee the district finances on behalf of our community, because in our next committee of the whole meeting in progress on our goal of working on financial reports, that's kind of will be the starting point. So what draws your attention? And the second, what do you think is necessary for us to fulfill our role? So if you just give some consideration to that over the next few weeks. So that brings us to board and district leadership team strategic planning, legislative update. Dan.
Yes, we met on Monday with our legislators and had a good discussion this week. Lots of events going on at our state capitol and getting underway. Devin Lemieux now is the leader in the Senate, and so he's got his whole staff up and running. And it's always great to have a good relationship with the people in our legislature, and Devin has always been very receptive to some of our discussions as well. So we had discussions about the vaccine rollout in the state of Wisconsin. And I'll have a little bit of note about that later on, about how it's working in our school district. That morning, that was when Secretary Palm from the state was tagged by the Biden administration to head to Washington, so that was a little bit of our discussion about how that will play out in future considerations related to the COVID pandemic. Getting into budget items, they indicated that tax revenue, both from property and income and from sales, was trending to a typical number even prior to the pandemic starting in March the previous year. So that is, I guess it's surprising news to me, but I guess we've also been kind of hearing that as we've moved along here. So I don't know how nobody can guarantee anything as far as revenues in the state and taxes coming in the state, but it appears that currently things are going fairly well, at least better than I would have expected. They're looking at, as far as the budget timeline in the state, a typical rollout. Governor Evers asked for an extension into the second half of February, which is very common. And then the legislature will review his work and then come back with their proposals. They're looking at about a mid-June timeline for the budget finalization, and hopefully. The earlier the better for us. Always. I see Amy over there shaking her head, hoping for earlier is better. Helps us understand where we're headed. And then we did have a discussion and had some recommendations about testing and the report card for the year. The district administrators were advocating for some relief around the assessment protocols that we do every year, the state testing ones that we do every year, and then the district reporting during the year, because with so many different districts in so many different types of arrangements with kids out in virtual. Some districts are completely virtual, some districts are just coming back in. There's a mix of those things. And at least according to what we're hearing, the testing has to be done in person, so a lot of people are worried about families are not going to send their kids to that part of the day when we have to have kids in for it. The SAT has just announced that they're changing their entire test for this school year, so there's a lot in flux, but yet the standard operating procedure in the state for testing is just kind of going ahead, and so we just don't want to have bad data. And so that's what we're advocating, is for some relief around that whole thing, and not specifics, but the consideration of relief. So it was a very good discussion, and they were very interested in trying to understand, why that would be an important thing for school districts. That's my report.
In the budget area, one of the resolutions for the WASB that we discussed last week talked about kind of holding harmless the student count during this pandemic. Does the legislature have any thoughts about that we don't have to take a big hit?
That is another thing that we advocate. That wasn't one of my personal things that I advocated for, but as a group, we advocated for that as a group of superintendents, yes. So they're aware of it.
Okay. And I saw that, I think the Assembly passed something that would require us to meet every 2 weeks to approve in-school, out-of-school type of stuff. Did that come up at all?
That's the Assembly bill, and the Senate bill has nothing like that in it, and according to the Senate, that's a non-starter. They don't want to change the dynamics of school board operations because of some variances in COVID that some groups don't like.
Okay, well, that's good news. Other questions or comments?
The last report card we have is from 2018-2019 school year. So we already missed 2019-2020 because of school being suspended, or canceled, or put virtual in 2020. We're looking at now 2021's report card as being the same.
I'm not saying that we don't need a report card. I'm saying that whatever the information that we get it needs to be coming with major italices about that we're not comparing. There's no way to compare one district to another this school year with any validity. So if they use it for that purpose, that's not a good use of the report card. If they give us the information, the kids take tests, those that do take tests, we can use their information individually, for their education or for a cohort of our own kids. But to use this year's report card as a indicator of a school to school comparison is you're using bad data.
Well, yeah, I mean, in reality though, if they gather the data, right, it becomes public record, it has to be available, right? It just doesn't have to be published on the site, but I mean, if someone requested that data, they could still get at that data, couldn't
They could get at the data, but the way that it's compiled and averaged into like a star
comparator,
ranking, a
right.
comparison, it's all that the averages compared are the things that I think we should have relief from in this year.
Right. I mean, I think as a district, we still want to know how are we doing compared to other districts. What I would italicize is we don't want the data for anyone to be used for a parent to use as, this is how I'm going to choose a district to send my school, because it just wouldn't be it wouldn't be good information to use for that, right? I think that's what our concern is more than anything else.
Yeah,
Right?
that's correct. We have very good internal data that we can use.
Right.
Individual student data. But just as an example, if in a school district, 40% of the population does not want to come in to take the test because you have to come in to take the test, you can't take it remotely at home, And in another school district, 10% of the population doesn't want to come in and take the test. Those,
Yeah, how do you compare that?
right, because you're going to use the actual number of students in one school district is not represented on that assessment. That's
Yeah.
where we're getting into some problems
That's where it's flawed.
this year.
Right.
I mean, it's a COVID phenomenon because you've got so many kids outside of school in different places and people that don't want to have their kids in a school building.
Are we able to use iReady virtually for
Yep.
those that are away?
Yes.
Absolutely. The virtual school has the elementary just finished, actually, pretty much everybody just finished the virtual and in person at all levels that take it.
And with the iReady, is there comparative data on that?
We've asked for some of that comparative data just to see how we do when there seem to be some anomalies.
Okay.
And those are generalizations because they don't use, that service is for individual growth against an individual goal
Okay.
or small cohort. It's not about comparing from school to school. No. It's formative.
Right,
Mhm.
there you go. It's
Yeah.
formative.
One of our good words.
But it would still be nice to at some level have some summative information about how did we do going through this COVID period, even though, you know,
Yeah, we will have a presentation at the end of the year about, and we'll use our iReady data for that, because we know how our kids have grown over typical years. We can compare our general kids against this COVID year of children, and we can watch those two graphs and see their trajectories.
The window just closed for the second diagnostic. So principals right now are just starting to meet with their staff and dig through it. Now, the teachers use it on a regular basis for their students to formatively assess where each student is at and what their needs are at. But then the schools will take a look at it more from an overarching, angle or overarching view of what gaps are we missing here or there, or what, right now, we're seeing some really nice progress. I had a talk with one of the elementary principals today, and they're seeing some good growth, very comparable to, previous years. And they're talking about, is it because of some of the structures we already have in place? Is it because there isn't as much time moving and from a group to a group, or when you're at a small table, the poking and the different activities that take place in those situations? So they're already having discussions of, why could it be that we're, seeing a lot of, because you would expect in the last few months that we sort of predicted, preparing ourselves that if we don't see as much growth as we want, but we've been really pleasantly surprised with what we've seen at this point. It's been very positive.
well, and that's right, that's what the data tells us. One is, well, maybe we learned something on how we
Right.
instruct, right? But the other side of it, if there are gaps, then as a board, we understand this is where we need to concentrate new resources going forward to try to close these gaps that have been created. So, yeah.
Is that testing first through 8th, or was it first through 5th?
We do kindergarten and actually now through 9th grade,
Okay.
just in English for 9th graders, in the English language arts areas.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Dan. Let's go down to the community engagement pillar. We have some information about our future states.
Yes, we had a good conversation in our committee of the whole meeting last week about the future states for the community engagement pillar. Took some of that feedback and reworked some of the wording for our future states, which I have there in front of you. We also collected some really good information from you about some strategies that we've now got, not on this sheet, but we've got kind of as starter strategies for some of those future states for ourselves. And so those are the future states that we delineated last time, and I'll just read them for the sake of the community. Because this is the pillar that talks about getting connecting our school district with the community and the community with our school district. And that's a very important aspect of what we believe to be the Plymouth schools. So all community members, alumni, and staff will recognize and know the 4 pillars of the strategic plan. Another one is all students and staff experience a connection to the community every year. All Plymouth Joint School District facilities are utilized by the community. All community members experience a connection to the Plymouth Joint School District community outreach every year. And Plymouth Joint School District Community Education Department will be the hub of lifelong learning and wellness in the community.
So really, this is speaking to the vision we have for this school district. You know, you'd say, what's the vision? We'd say in community education, these are the 5 things that we picture down the road we'd like to become, and then strategies are developed to help us get there. So, good work on taking our discussion last week. Any further comments or thoughts about them, board members?
Looks great.
Okay.
Well, let's get to work on it then, huh?
Yes, sir. That's the work that we love to do anyway.
Yeah. All right, the next is the designation of available spaces for regular and special education open enrollment, and we'll look to Ann Gamoki and Dan Mella for this.
Go ahead, Ann.
Well, at our previous committee meeting, we had a chance to really understand the purpose of this designation by the state that we set when we talked about the things that go into that decision making. So the recommendation from the administration was to not have limits on seats for general education students, so that the seats for special ed would need to be we have to close that because of how heavily weighted the need for those services is right now in our district. And that was really, this year especially, influenced by the services the teachers are providing due to COVID. And so the recommendation also did include that we felt we could meet the needs of the students that were already in our district. So the recommendation from administration was if you are a student who is here under open enrollment but would perhaps maybe become special ed, that you would be allowed to stay, and that if you were a student who attended our district as a community member but moved out and requested to come back and stay in due to open enrollment because you were already in our numbers, that you would be able to stay. So I think in your packets you have, that's the explanation, but the actual how it is phrased, you should have. I don't know if that needs to be read.
Sure. So I think the appropriate thing is if we want
To
to
accept the recommendation of the administration, that somebody would make a motion reading this page here as the recommendation. Somebody have that in front of them that's willing to make a motion? Tony does.
Make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the administration. The recommendation is there will be unlimited availability for regular education students. There is no space available for special education students in grades early childhood through grade 12. There is no space available for speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, or CISA services of vision, hearing impaired, and orientation and mobility in all grade levels. Currently attending applicants and residence students will be guaranteed approval in the upcoming application period.
We have a motion to accept that recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion or thoughts about it? All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed say no. Brings us down to number 8, our education COVID update and revisions. And Dan and Dina will lead us through that.
Yes, just a little, I'm going to have this wording that I added, that we talked about adding to this item every board meeting, because as we're moving forward, and as you see our data has changed over time, we've had, knock on wood, a good stretch of low numbers of positive cases recently. And we've had, although we have had a little blip here the last couple of days with some contact tracing, not positive numbers, but contacts, so that's going to have increased a little bit. But in general, our trend is still in a positive direction from where it was in November. And we are going to continue to try to open up community access and services through community ed to our facilities. Open up opportunities for students to come back into places like the high school because of a need to connect for their educational purposes. So students, for example, who were A, B, were out, were doing what everybody else was. Some students who just needed to get back in with consultation with their parents are now coming every single day, for example. So that's kind of like we're bringing more people back into the fold as it's safe, and continuing to use all of our mitigation strategies along the way. And so as we don't need to make any changes to our reopening plan, but just in case we need to make a change to the reopening plan for something larger, we can do that with this language. I'd like to talk also about in this item that we've begun our 1A vaccination group. So there are vaccines allotted to Sheboygan County Public Health that are available for distribution to school personnel qualified or classified in the 1A group, which are people who think about it as nurses, school nurses, health aides that work with students very closely in certain situations. They're a little bit higher risk for exposure, so we had to create a list like every other school district in the Sheboygan County area. And then when the vaccines were released on Monday, we sent out the link for our staff to sign up because it has to be their own. They have to sign up on their own. And so we had a number of our staff are now going to be getting the vaccine this week. And the same situation will again happen next week for our 1A group. And so we're going to hopefully get our people that want a vaccine, so that we can have more assuredness that our staff is working safely in the situation. After the 1As are completed, for all those that want one, then the 1Bs will roll out. And we're hearing anywhere from middle to late February for that. Although I have to say, this 1A group, although it's not everybody, all 100 slots filled up in 45 minutes in the county, so the demand is high. But we did get we are getting a group of teachers vaccinated earlier than what we were predicted to get a month back. So I'm really positive about that. So that being said, because the numbers have been low in the county, and because I think people are feeling maybe the light is at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine, we have to remember to stay vigilant, and we have to continue to work with our families and with our students to try to make sure that we're not putting ourselves at risk for more exposures and having another surge, because I think there's probably some COVID fatigue, and maybe we're feeling a little bit cavalier about it, but I think we've had a little spike with just as of today with some contacts that probably were because of the fact that we're almost done with this now. So I think people are feeling that way, but with continued work together with our families and communities, and with getting the vaccines coming in, I'm very optimistic that we're going to have the ability to get a summer school and a pretty normal start to the next school year going, and I'm very hopeful about that. Do you have anything to add, Dina?
No, I think it was good. I was at Horizon yesterday when they got the, the information and people were able to quickly, they sort of planned, they had that time frame, so he made sure everybody was covered and was able to quickly get on and sign up if they wanted to. But overall, I just continually want to thank our nurses because they work really hard. And they truly have been why we've been so successful with just being so diligent in contact tracing and working with families and staff. So they definitely have made a major impact for our district.
Well, that's good news. I don't see anything in there that we need to vote on, so just keep doing the good work that you guys are doing. That brings us to Finance, Buildings, and Grounds, and we need to accept the 2019-2020 audit report. That was distributed to us last Monday, and I trust everybody's done whatever they needed to do with that. So, Amy, is there anything you want to say about that for the sake of the community?
Not anything different than I said last week. No, that everything went well. The auditors continue to be pleased with our practices. The only finding is one that they find every single year, that we don't employ someone to write our financial statements, which is all of this. So our auditors do it, which is perfectly fine. It just has to be stated in our report. So if anybody would like an extra copy for your house, I have them here for you.
Lou?
Yeah. She'll be so happy.
So the motion is to accept the report and then forward it on to the DPI.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Very good. And then we have gifts and corresponding budget adjustments. Dan?
Yes, and a huge thank you to the community and everybody who donates to the education program here year-round. It's wonderful. First, a donation of $475 from the Plymouth Education Foundation for creating a Passion for Reading program at Horizon Elementary. Another donation of $195.04 from the Plymouth Education Foundation for handbells to be used in the chorus department at Horizon Elementary. Then another donation of $598 from Sargento Foods, just for the Plymouth School District General. And then an anonymous donation of $1,652.86 to purchase a new girls varsity softball scoreboard at the Plymouth High School.
Okay, so we need to receive these gifts and make the corresponding budget adjustments. Do we have a motion and a second?
I move that we receive these gifts and thank you very much for all your assistance.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Very good. We don't have anybody signed in for public participation, so we'll go down to number 11, the board liaison reports. Sally, can you tell us what's happening in community education?
Sure, even though we have not met, Community Ed is still active. They do have fitness classes coming up. They have yoga, they have cycling, and also the walking. Do go onto the website and see what you're interested in. You do need to sign up and have your slot filled. So it's open to the community, so come on in. Any questions?
No? Very good. Thank you, Sally. What about in the foundation, Bob?
Well, the foundation, we just read two of the gifts that were mini grants provided by the foundation. We continue to look at mini grants. We still have some money in our fund, and we encourage all the staff to consider putting forward a proposal for a large grant or a mini grant.
Good. And then in the Family Resource Center, Dan?
Yeah, I don't really have a major update, but I did want to point out, they did release their 2020 annual report, and there's a couple summaries that I thought I'd point out. The Family Resource Center was established in 1997 as a nonprofit organization and is dedicated to supporting young children and their families and adults through its 2 strength-based preventative programs. You've heard me talk about them as Parents as Teachers and the Literacy Council. And then to just underscore, their mission is to building strong families and strong communities through community collaboration, strength-based preventative programs, and referrals to community resources and services. That is it.
Good. So this is a completely separate organization from our school that we partner with.
That's correct.
The community ed is a part of our school system, but it's good to hear the reports of what's happening in that area. And then the foundation is actually a different organization than our school district. So,
Right.
very good.
Common purpose.
All right, let's go down to personnel, and we have a contract to approve and then some other updates.
Yes, the first one, which requires action, is the board will consider a contract for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year for Patricia Kanowski to be a 4th grade teacher at Fairview Elementary School.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second to approve Patricia?
I move we approve hiring Patricia.
Second. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes. Yes. And then the support staff updates don't require any action on our behalf, but we do appreciate you keeping us updated.
A couple of updates this month. Melissa Conrad has resigned as a special education aide at the Plymouth High School. Melissa has been with the school district for 5 years. Kelly Klug has resigned as a health room aide at the Plymouth High School. Kelly's been with the school district for 7 years. And Gina Sullivan has resigned as an aide in the cozy room for Riverview Middle School. Gina has been with the school district for 4 months.
What is the COSI room?
Those are the rooms that were designated and created specifically for COVID times, for somebody that was in the school that day that needed to come down to the health room. They didn't go to the health room, they went to the cozy room, which was specifically just for kids that had COVID symptoms.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you. The next item is the president's report. And there are, to the community, we have adopted a goal of understanding and being able to communicate the financial condition of the district in the ways that make sense. So between now and the end of June, our school board is going to be working on learning that and learning to articulate that. So that's our next goal that we have as a school board, to become better and to become more effective at what we need to do. We do have 2 seats that are going to be filled by incumbents because the time for running for the school board or applying to run for the school board as a candidate has now passed. And so myself and Phil Zelmer are the open seats that will, and we are the only ones that have applied for that. So that's on the that. To the board, I would say that next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, John Eicholt is going to be doing some DAPES, that's the District Administrator Performance Evaluation System training with Kathy Turner. I'll be a part of that. And because it's being done virtually, you're welcome to jump on if you'd like. We just need to know that so that we can make sure you get the link and the attending materials for that. But that'll be happening at 1 p.m. next Wednesday if you want an update or a refresher on that process. So that's the report that I have for the school board. Thank you. And Dan, we have a president's or a superintendent's report.
Yeah, it kind of relates to when Dina mentioned our nurses, and my superintendent's report today is linked to, if you've been watching the school boards and reading the articles, articles in the paper about what we've been working on with our future states for our strategic plan. We've been adding in a lot about connecting to the community. And so what I was thinking about was just trying to let everybody know about how the people that we've had to connect with the community with in different ways this year because of COVID, it's just kind of amazing. And the first one that I wanted to mention were our nurses. Typically, our nurses contact a few people a week because people are sick and they come down or they get a bloody nose on the playground. And this year, it can be 100 people in 2 days because of an incident where there's a close contact. And our secretaries jump right in and they help with that. Some of us that have the ability to jump in and try to communicate with families, jump in and try to get communication going. Our aides and custodians, all of the people that are the backbone of the school district that in a lot of years don't typically have to communicate with the public a ton. Internal publics like the teachers and external publics have really had to do that this year. And they've done a wonderful job. I mean, a lot of times it's not good news. You know, our custodians have to tell people, no, we can't, it's not open yet because of COVID. Our nurses have to call and say, I'm sorry, but your student has to be quarantined. And a lot of times people are upset, people are frustrated, and so trying to understand how people are feeling and to listen with empathy and to grow in that regard. I think so many of our people in the district have become more empathetic listeners, and I think so many people in our community have come to understand and have been really helpful and good listeners coming back the other way too. So it's a community connection. It's kind of an odd community connection to bring up, but it's a very close emotionally tying community connection because it's usually about some one-to-one thing that affects somebody's child that is not probably very happy. And so trying to make that a better situation for everybody has been a really, really big growth experience for us this year. So our nurses were a great starting example, but there's a lot of other people that are doing that same work. And we look forward to more of it as we dig into our strategies with those future states. I'd like to just mention a couple of accomplishments. Recently, speaking about opening things up and having some more opportunities, we have had a jazz band concert, and the performance was January 11th. It actually was happening as we were in here for the committee of the whole meeting, and it was wonderful sounding even through the walls. And we had a full band that performed on January 18th. So it's all socially distanced, very few people in attendance to come and watch, but we're also being able to tape some of these things and show them off, and so it's wonderful. A couple other things that are happening. Tournament time is coming up in sports, swimming, basketball, what else is on my, wrestling is on my list. Those things are all happening, they're coming up, and we're getting near the end of the season, so an accomplishment is getting near the end of the season and completing seasons, so I thought that was kind of a great accomplishment too. A couple of upcoming events. PHS will be having finals. In fact, I think they started today, so it's getting near the end of the semester. The practice ACT test will be the 27th, next Wednesday. On January 22nd will be a PD Friday, so students will not be here. Staff will be doing professional development. And on the 25th, there will be a freshman orientation night where we will have in-person socially distanced presentation available for families, but also a simulcast video presentation for families. So just a couple things coming up.
Very good. I remember a few years ago, throughout the school district wanted to do training in customer service. It sounds like they're getting a crash course in on-the-job training this year, aren't they?
That is true.
Very good. Well, that completes our agenda, so thank you very much. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Does anybody want to leave?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.